It sounds like this is a very important piece to you. Am I right?
Yeah, it is. I think in many different levels. I remember downtown Toronto looking out at Lansdowne and DuPont, which was my studio, in kind of the west end of Toronto. And this is when I was like 22, and I had a crisis about my identity as being a Canadian. And I think a lot of young people are. What is it like to be a Canadian? What is my nation all about, and everything like that. And the one anchor that I had was this Gordon Lightfoot and his songs, and it brought me a lot of happiness. And even, it's like the soundtrack of my growing up, in a sense. I remember sitting with my friend Alan Pepler when I'm 17, 18 years old, and we'd just sit in the basement and play Gord's Gold and turn the record, yes, the record over, and listen to the other side. And that's we could spend an afternoon with that. So he was like, Lightfoot was like a good friend in my high school period, and a good friend of all my other friends, right? So
through the records.
Yeah, CDs also later on. But you know, it's just like, I think that if you look at all of his songs, and I travel all over the world. I have my large studio in Xiamen, China, which is near Hong Kong, and you really appreciate the identity of a Canadian, which is different. Like, a lot of his songs are love songs, and as I'm sculpting this, I'm thinking, is this really like, okay, the Canadian Railroad trilogy, that's a given that it's part of Canada. But how about songs like You're Beautiful? And if you travel around the world, you'll realize that people in Canada even love differently than people in other parts of the world. And so I think when you put all of his songs together, it creates an amazing biography of who we are, right, at this specific time in our life. So you have the government and people all across Canada doing like sculptures of Louis Riel, and I'm actually working on a sculpture of Champlain right now, and the Huron, the natives, and that's great. But there's also another element that oftentimes is forgotten as far as honoring our heritage, and that is the artists like Gordon Lightfoot. And so I'm excited that as my other public sculptures rise up to celebrate other aspects of Canada, Mr. Lightfoot will have that visual presence. And it's interesting. I was thinking about the power of sculpture and bronze sculpture. And it's like you can get an honorary degree, you can you can get this award, you can get that award, but there's something really cool and different about someone honoring you with a bronze sculpture. And so I think that to have that feather in Lightfoot's cap and to be the person that was part of, and I'm just saying part because, like I mentioned, if it wasn't for the patron, if it wasn't for the city, this would never happen. But to be a part of doing that to such a Canadian legend makes me, as an artist, feel like I am fulfilling a role in Canada.
We talked about how you're going to coat it in rubber and create that negative relief of it. Take it to your foundry. Your foundry is in China. Why is this?
I don't know one foundry in North America that could do this in a half-decent time, right? To be quite honest. A project this complex, very, very rare to be done, and within a set amount of time, right? And so basically, being a Canadian, I stopped, I started using huge foundries, some of the largest foundries in the world, and that's where I am right now, where the quality is impeccable, and the speed to get it done is phenomenal. To think that right now it's March and I am going to have this piece done in July is just awesome. I have to do that using one of the biggest foundries, one of the countries that is set up for massive sculpture, and that's China.
In the design of creating the sculpture, I find it interesting that the top three leaves of the leaf are three scenes from the Canadian Railroad trilogy. Was this an intentional thing, or was it an accidental thing that you came up with that, or?
Well, you know, it's interesting because it's the only song that has 3 leaves, the Canadian Railroad Trilogy. The idea of a tapestry or a quilt that the pieces put together make up the Canadian identity. So it's almost like if I said to you, do you know what? If you take all of Gordon Lightfoot's songs and you put them together, you'll really get a picture of what it's like to be a Canadian or the Canadian experience. And I visually just did exactly what I said. I took all of his songs from one album, put them all together in the form of the symbol, the universal symbol of Canada. So it's almost like if I just basically took that idea and actually created a sculpture out of it.
When you talk about rainy day people, you talk about that edge, that thin edge between, do they know each other or are they in love? Which sometimes can be a very fine, razor sharp point of departure. Do you do these individual scenes with an intent of what you want the viewer to see, or do you leave it, are you intentionally leaving it ambiguous so that a younger person, a younger couple that maybe doesn't know each other, they can take a meaning out of it? An older couple that's been together for 50 years, they can take their meaning out of it?
No, I want people to get whatever they want out of it. And like one thing I did not want to do is have too much information on each song about, because I know on the internet you can research exactly what Lightfoot's own experience was here. You know, this happened in, you know, Michigan, or this happened in New York City, and the girl was like this. And I don't want to hear any details. What this is it's an impression of someone listening to the music and visually interpreting what's on the table, what's on the song, right? And my hope in doing that is it becomes universal, so other people can put themselves in it, just like I put myself into his songs. And that's what he did. Like, I'm sure Lightfoot, he's the main character in most of his songs too, right? People that listen to it, they become first person when they listen to it. And likewise with this. But you know, it's just like the one that, like the experiences about changing a hand gesture can change everything in the whole piece, right? The way that it's suggested to can actually be determined on how fast the song is or how slow the song is, right? Like the wherefore and the why. It has a melody about it, and how I sculpted, it was very kind of rhythmic the way I sculpted, very stylized. Whereas other songs like Song on the Winter's Night, it's very kind of softly sculpted, believe it or not. There's not that much hard. It's very simple. You know, you have the glass that's almost empty. You have the lantern almost going out, and you have the window with the snow coming in, and the 2 hands. That's it, right? And so,
and of course, the songs, the contrast. The songs sound different, and so you've picked up on the difference in how whether he's playing with a hard edge or a soft edge.
Exactly. Like, for instance, if it's, but I don't know. It's like, I think that I have faith in the idea of artwork, and I have faith that an expression of a song can be translated into a sculpture, and some sort of the essence can be captured of that song. You know, the flavor of it or something. It's interesting, but I do believe that when people come and see it, if they've seen or if they have listened to his songs, it'll be a real experience to see one person's interpretation. Just like if someone takes a Lightfoot song and does, you know, a jazz piano take on it, right? That's a different way of seeing it. This is a real different way of seeing it, and it's I think it's something that fans will benefit from, and like I mentioned before, people that have never heard of Lightfoot will look at the trains, look at the women, look at the all of this going on, and say, who is this person, right? I want to learn more about this guy, right? The great thing about bronze, right, is you can't turn the volume down. And this sculpture has Lightfoot blaring.